Hello, Krishan. Thank you so much for joining me today. As the director of Aavasavyuham, the Abid documentation of an amphibian hunt, which I'm analyzing as part of my PhD thesis, I'm eager to explore your intentions, inspirations, and creative process behind crafting this remarkable piece of eco cinema. So now coming to the first question, the format of this movie is of a mockumentary, right? Which is pretty rare in Indian cinema. What made you choose this format?
My idea was that I need to. So the research went on for quite some time, and I had three people working on and so we had a lot of material. So the story was already there, but then a lot of these facts cannot be included into the story unless we make one of the characters speak about, this thing, and that would not sound good. That would sound too academic and too preachy and everything. So what I thought is use a documentary format, and then at the same time the documentary format was not as enticing because you are still making cinema which has entertainment as well. So then I chose this documentary, which is not true. And however, in Aavasvyuham, it's not completely a mockumentary because there is one activist coming in who's really an activist, and there is
Yeah.
also a parapsychologist coming who's really a parapsychologist. So in mockumentary, everyone is performing, but in our film, there are real people also. I can't completely call it a mockumentary. I'll call this as a format which embraces pieces from mockumentary, pieces from documentary, pieces from normal revenge cinema, which is a masala film that you normally see, and also magical realism. And at its core, I wanted to make an eco superhero film, like a superhero which is inspired from the ecosystem. And also there is a gentle attempt that people might discover this film, and then they get aware and sensitive to their immediate environment. Also, I should not lie, I also had intentions of making money too.
Yeah. So, coming to the cinematography, it feels very raw but very deliberate also, right?
Mhm.
So can you share how you developed the film's visual language?
So Vishnu Prabhakar is the DOP. So the film has three separate visual languages. One is one in which the camera is like cinema verite. It's like a documentary. So it follows the character, the shake, and some of the shakes are deliberately designed. So we got a rig uh, so that my DOP can use and move the camera around. And then there is and this aspect user 28 lens, and we were shooting for a longer period. So what we did is we got a Zuiko, old-fashioned Zuiko glass, which is a 1980 70 Minolta lens, and we mounted it on the cameras to get this whole feel. And also this Vishnu was asked to go infinite, so the most of the motions are like the infinity loop. So this is one aspect. And the second is a little bit of cinema, which is like the nights are blue in color in cinema. And, and there is the face closer to the, when your face is closer to the camera, it has darkness and
Yes.
catch light in your eye, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of layering. So this is the second one. And the third one is like a masala cinema where you have slow motions and this and that. For that we use longer lenses like the 70 85 mm, the 135 mm, slow frame rates. And so this there are these three languages, and this language keeps repeating with each other. Then there are interviews also, which is kind of like a fourth language, but let's put it in the first cinema verite itself. So this is the visual language used, and the cinema moves from gentle. It starts with warmth, and there's cool, and it finally ends up again in a warmer space. Vishnu was of the idea that you are, bro, we are making a sci-fi. So the sci-fi films have globally have a green look to it. So even gentle scenes have a little bit of green lights. And since we are on a budget, we cannot hire this big lights on every day. We have hired it for several days, but not every day. So we used aperture. We use a fake one of aperture, the small lights, which gives a green tint. So to give it a sci-fi aspect, and this is mostly the visual language. And my idea was that the audience should not understand this visual language. It should go from chaos to normal, to chaos and then normal, and then to an interview. Just like how you experience data on TV or data on your mobile phone, or data where the context keeps on changing, the language keeps on changing, but overall it is held by the continuum in our head. So this was the visual language that, and we could achieve 70% of what we imagine.
Krishan, one question from my side.
So,
You did mention that this movie is a mixture of many genres. In fact, I mean, we keep wondering what is it. I mean, you cannot name it. So,
yes,
as you rightly said in just a few minutes back, that magic realism runs through and through in this movie,
yes.
with Joy transforming into an amphibian or a near amphibian. Do you feel that magic realism can enhance an environmental message or environmental rhetoric? Did that ever strike?
Yes, because we are looking at. Let's not look at the European idea of saving nature in India. Basically, from the Jain ideas of
Mhm.
conservation, is basically you deem a forest or you deem an environment as sacred, and then you have this interplay between humans and the nature, and you take from nature like hunters. You take
Mhm.
what is needed and stuff. So
Correct.
this the character of Joy was also envisaged as a Jain Tirthangara, with
Mhm.
the head and everything.
Mhm.
So it's more primal than Hinduism. And so this idea is pretty good that we have this ecosystem. That's how Shabrimala is, and that's how a lot of things in the Northeast are, and all the stuff. And I think that this works in such a way because we as humans have knowledge, and we do the step by step process of hypothesis, understanding, research, and experiment. But at the same time, our radars are more open to imagination as well, which is beautiful because it helps us survive, like religions, like cults, like bedtime stories. So I think this helps us to develop a more empathetic nature towards ecosystem, because we are not able to index everything through science, when we are younger.
Yes.
And at that age, we push in a little bit of these stories and magic and everything. And when you're of the age where you're able to understand the difference between science and religion, if you're bringing is empathetic, that is,
Yeah.
in
That
a
matters. Yeah.
yeah, in a better space. And
Empathy is a key, actually, right? As you rightly said, like our environmental activism should begin with the point of empathy. Uh,
yeah, empathy training is something that has a lot to do with the biochemical way in which we are made also. So
Correct.
a person born in a stressful environment, like say a slum in Kerala or Bombay, might not have the sensibilities to interact with his environment and understand the
Correct.
complex nature, because they're always on survival mode. I think this whole magical realism in storytelling helps us to open our ways to a lot of the enigma of nature, and it can be exploited in religion also, which is, but everything has its own state. Printing paper has its own, problems. You print a propaganda, you print porn, and you print everything. So
Yes.
everything has its own, yes, both sides. But I would want children to look at nature not in a taxonomic way,
Mm.
but look
Mm.
at nature in a magical way,
Magical way.
which will help them eventually.
Great, great. Another point that crossed my mind is, I keep wondering whether whether this eco cinema has finally reached India, or but particularly, I would like to know from you, now that you have, it seemed to have internalized this in spirit so much. So I feel, I'm curious, just curious enough to ask you a question, whether any effort was taken in the production
Uh,
to, to have some amount of conservation of energy, minimizing the wastage, because eco cinema goes to a point where even production is very often audited.
yes, 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 yes.
So,
I think in our, so I am basically sensitive to environment. Somehow I don't understand how it happened, but I am deeply sensitive to such spaces. And during the making of this film, it is 100%.
okay.
After the film, somehow now I made a film on war, so this is more like I am privileged enough to shift my taste on things. But during the making of this film, there was this one day when we ran over a frog in the night, and I ended up being very sad, and I ended up crying. And then I thought that this is what art, involving in art makes us. We will run
Yes.
over frogs, and we build roads over forest and run over snakes and everything when we don't care. But that day, I'm thinking in the most Tirthangara idea that
Yes.
they are also part of this. We had a small crew. There was a proper waste management.
Yes.
We also did not try to disrupt the space, because the space, there's an actor who played Wawa. This
Mhm.
whole space, he's from that space, and he keeps telling us that you should not disrupt it in this manner, you should shoot it in this time. So we
Very
did
good.
not want to engage with the life of the people, so mostly we managed this. I shot a series recently with Sony, where this is a part of the whole budgeting as well, where money is spent on not using
Correct.
plastic.
Correct. Correct.
So we did not have such a budget for these things. But we did not. I don't think we encroached and destroyed anything, or we were careful not to litter with cigarette butts
Yes.
and
Mhm.
and so we collected all that papers and everything. So the encroachment, because at this point everyone is sensitive. None of us are really sensitive throughout, and we can't be blamed, because sometimes I also feel that there is no need for such sensitivity as well, because we will be replaced. It's just this fleet. It is this sensitivity is for our survival and
Correct.
not for nature's, or preserving this nature for our future is basically a selfish need, because the most viable creatures will come and replace us and go. So these thoughts keep running. But during shoot we were a little careful, especially with fuel.
Yeah.
Fuel, we
Correct.
were careful. With paper we were careful. Waste,
Waste man. Yeah.
plastics, we were careful. Cigarette butts, we were careful.
What
uh,
about the power? Power part of it. Consumption of power.
I don't remember this. We took it long back, so but I don't think, since it's a smaller film, I think generally the power consumed is lesser. The carbon footprint is lesser because
Less.
it's an
Yeah.
independent
Yeah. Correct.
power film. So there's no not much wastage is what I feel, but we have not accounted it.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Anima, please.
Yeah, so you were talking about how it can change the audience perception on nature, right? So,
Yes.
have you got any feedback from people that it has indeed enhanced their connection with the story or with nature?
A lot of feedbacks, and this is because that's the magic of cinema with entertainment. And you have to thank a corporate for this also, because Sony Live has taken this film and they've taken it to the rest of India, which is commendable. And this means that such cinema is reaching everyone, and everybody is able to choose it if they get a chance, or if they get to know about it. And a lot of people had messaged me, mailed me. I become parts of this environment groups here and there. And yeah, yes, they have.
That's great.
We also showed it in schools recently. The only feedback is there is an intimate scene, so the teachers were like, why did you show? Like, I did not know that these are young children. I thought they are 8, 9, 10, but younger children, but they are used to violence and stuff.
Yeah.
It's okay, and it's time to wonder where they came from also. But at the same
So, how
time,
has
Nicely
yeah?
put.
So,
Yeah.
how has the audience feedback, maybe positive or negative, shaped your understanding about the film's impact?
no, what I understood is that if you are able to design around the attention span, and you design your pauses, and you design your message in a not message, but your philosophy in a particular manner, then there are people who will understand that. Also, this is another understanding 2 years later, 3 years later after the film. Now when I look at it, we are bombarded by material so much. It is just a part of this capitalistic culture of media, that you are bogged in with content, and you really because of the Insta reels and TikTok and all this, you're really not worried about anything but the next content. So usually books, why people get into Naxalism by reading Maxim Gorky, or why people get into literature by reading this Arundhati Roy. It does not happen now because of the lack
Correct.
of the time to imbibe and the time to exercise in your mind and interact with this material, and form an opinion because of technology. And it's not a bad thing, but I think that the bad thing is that imbibing from art and doing it in real is different now. You really don't get that conversion, and that is because of the fast-paced nature of media bombardment. And I don't know if it is bad for me. For the younger generation, they don't know the other side, so for them it is good only. This is how they'll see.
They
uh,
are the digital natives. They are the digital natives. We are all digital immigrants.
Immigrants.
We come from the text to film. Like
Yeah.
most of these people learn through audiovisual. They don't read from text, of course.
And also with AI and everything, their answers are already given. I really don't have a comment whether this has affected, but I've seen a few people getting more sensitive when they speak about it because of the dragonfly episode, for example.
Yeah, you're right.
So a lot of people, a few people have spoken about how, and they start wondering about the magnanimity of the intercontinental plates moving, and how Kerala was a part of Africa and stuff. So or India was with Madagascar, and so these thoughts come to people. But again, these are people who had the privilege of knowledge, and who had the privilege of getting exposed to knowledge in their immediate environments. So that has to do with caste and money and stuff, uh,
Correct.
and a lot of these things. But I have seen people react in that manner. Younger people, they're like, that's just a kidu padam, like an awesome padam, because of
No,
their
no, my
music
son
and
is just 8-year-old. He shouts at me, "We are working on eco cinema. What have you done?" He asks me. He's just, he watches with me and asks me. Okay,
uh,
so is there anything that you would have approached differently looking back, do you think? Maybe in the
No,
story, texture,
I've got a
choices,
lot of
everything.
feedbacks telling me that the last half of the film ended up being heavily comic, and also very funny, and skittable, and all those feedbacks I got. So, which was a deliberate choice actually, because this, and that is the reason why this film is sold, because of the entertainment value in the second half.
Correct.
So I don't want to sound very intelligent and then have few people who have the same privilege sit in a room and discuss this film, rather than maybe I would quote Kashyap, dumb it down a little bit,
Yes.
and make it more democratic, so that with those jokes I'm able to get people watching this whole thing. So it is, I wouldn't have changed that. The only thing that I would change is, so I've found this pattern in me, that I'm making fun of Christianity a little bit here and there. So, and this has to do with my biases on the converted Christians, and which is secretly a caste bias that I have deep inside me, and I find that funny. And but we should understand that these are people who are really uh,
Sensitive. Yeah, probably sensitive on that issue also.
and poor, and so they get money from certain religions and they get converted, and
Correct.
this helps them live a life, and also they might be hopeless in their particular sect, and they
Exactly.
find hope in something else, and
Yes.
a community in something else. And that religion is catering to a mass without any privilege. So their music, their prarthana, their religion, everything is dumbed down to symbol words and symbol rhythms, which make it funny for us who are very
Correct.
privileged and who have the.
Yeah, that this is the issue of the privilege of the perceiver.
Yes,
Who
yes, yes.
watches the movie also makes a very very significant point. Like so I'm also quite curious to know about one more thing. You have very, I don't know, it must be a deliberate effort to choose your setting, that is Puduvaip.
Ah,
So
ah, ah.
how do you? I mean, how did you ended up? How did you end up in selecting this as a setting, and particularly the wetland ecosystem?
Oh, yes, yes.
It strikes very, very
Yes.
deeply the wetland ecosystem. How did you end up in selecting this?
No, no. I wanted to shoot in Monroe. My
Okay,
idea was to shoot in Monroe, and uh, the the Monroe Turtu being
yeah,
destroyed because of the water and the species migrating from Turtu to Turtu. Those were the issues that I was dealing with. And then one of my actor, who's also my co-producer, Shins,
mm,
the one who played Vawa, he
yeah.
said, "You are living in Kochi and you want to go to Kollam." And then, but there is I stay at Puduvaipa, and Puduvaipa has a lot of issues, and you might want to come. So when I went to Puduvaipa, I had to change the screenplay because of the Kochi fort, the port problems of Kochi,
Yeah.
the new land that is found, the IOC and Bharat Petroleum and everything,
Correct,
Initially.
correct,
and
correct.
also the migrations and
Yes.
this whole thing. And in between, I read a book called Untold Story of the Coast. I forgot the name of the author. So this started, getting me hooked onto the wetland ecosystem of Kochi,
Wetland
which is
ecosystem.
very similar to. So I was very keen on the Bombay wetland ecosystem.
Yes,
I
yes.
did a project as an associate with my faculty, was doing a documentary which is funded by MMRDA, but so it's a propaganda. However, but at the same time, it's an idea about the Mithi River getting
Wetland.
flooded in Bombay,
Correct.
and how the whole wetland ecosystem and everything changed, and how the government was helping, the MMRDA was helping people re-up. So I was already sensitive to this wetland ecosystems, and and I was always good at biology also. Like, and somehow, maybe this has to do with Spielberg as well,
Yes.
in the sense that when you see the ecosystem in Jurassic Park, you see a lot of ferns and you see a lot
Ferns. Yeah.
primal forest with which has a lot of,
Correct,
it's like
correct.
chembagam and all, like there's a lot of texture, and so when you go to a mangrove, you find that you are in a space which must be older than
Correct.
all the ancestors that you can remember.
Very
So
valid. Yeah. That's
so
a very, very valid point. Yeah.
so these things would add to the narrative as well, and also I'm the roots coming up to breathe,
Mhm.
the methane. So there's a lot of things there which is crazy, which is surreal, which is like an alien environment
Absolutely.
right in the middle
Absolutely.
of our environment.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated by Sundarbans also. So I've read a book called Amitav Ghosh's book.
Hungry tide. Hungry
Agree.
tide.
So I think all this, keep on adding to. When I saw Puduvaipu, I'm like, I should this. And then when you adapt a space into your content, you should respect the ethno geography, the people, their lifestyles. So all this, their problems and the government problem. And at the core of cinema, at exactly the center of cinema, we have placed the problem of the plant, and then related it to how the change in ecosystem affects everyone, including humans, animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah, so your next film, that is Purushapretam, it also has references to climate change and wetlands, right? So were these choices influenced by the impact of Aavasavyuham?
No, no, climate change. How come I don't remember? But I think Purushapretam is an older content than Aavasvyuham.
Okay.
Me and Ajit wrote this content. It's written by a
Hmm.
different. Manu is the police officer who wrote it. Ajit is the person, and Ajit had this idea that this dead body comes, which
Yeah.
happened real. So it is mostly police procedural material, and it
Yeah,
happens in
there are
Kochi.
references. That's what I'm saying. So,
It's I think when you are embracing the ethnogeography of a story, I think, and this is happening in Kochi, we can't ignore the
Ecosystem.
wetlands and so it has these two. It has a very urban setting at times in Purushapratham. Like you
yeah,
start with buildings and you start
yeah,
with pillars and metro and everything, and then you go into wetlands, and then you come back into claustrophobic rooms and cities, and then you again go with Jagadish sir into Prashant Center into this. So it is basically used as a tool to get your brain to have claustrophobia and then expansion. So it's used as an attention tool. There is no reference to echo cinema at all.
okay. So, through these movies, are you trying to create a larger conversation about our relationship to the environment, or do you want to continue that theme because I could see some reference in Purusha Pretam also.
No,
Though
no,
you say it was not intentional, I could feel that.
no, no.
Maybe because of my
My,
impact of Aavasavyuham.
I think my sensitivity towards things, which has a lot to do with my. Luckily, I got a good education. I have a Master of Design from IIT Bombay, so I am into policy design, or I am into communication design, and my parents could give me the privilege of reading. They threw me in a public library when I was younger, and got me into reading, and also cinema. So all these influences, they add up together, and I'm not shying away from taking these influences and putting it in cinema. Also, I'm not looking at what is popular right now and then trying to adapt that into my cinema. Rather than I would make something and then try to make it interesting so that it communicates. So things that I'm sensitive about, like say ecosystems, things that I'm sensitive about. So if you look at all my films, I have a there is a procedural. Every film that I've made is a procedural cinema. It has some government procedure which does not. Oh, I should not say this. I think somebody else should say this, right? It is some in Aavasavyuham. It is like what happens when an Ubhayajeevi or a mammal creature or something that comes and occupies your space. What is the procedure that happens? In Purusha Pratham, it's about a dead body. In Vrittagrhi, it's about a parent dying at home, and then now you have to deal with that procedure. It's like nobody's there, and the father is rotting at his house. So now you have to deal with the residents association. You have to deal with police, and you have to deal. So it's all my film, even Sangarsha. And I've understood that it is this procedural policy design that interests me, and so it has to do with this learning design in IDC. Again, when this whole landslide happens, I am wondering why the government has not taken the best people from across the world,
Correct. Correct.
put 20 crores or 50 crores, that is the budget of a normal power Malayalam cinema, into
Yes.
it, and ask these people to find all the spots where this occurrences can happen, and what is the policy design, how it can help people, can help nature. So this thoughts keep on running in my head because it's not rocket science. It's just putting academics into proper use, and understanding which are the say, eco-sensitive areas, which are the areas that are susceptible to eroding, which are the areas that are susceptible to change, and it can be simply solved. And we are not solving it. So this comes in Purusha Pratham, this comes in Aavasvyuham, this comes in Vrittakriti, this comes in Sangarsha. It'll come in again. Then next film, it has got to do with my, I think, education.
So another interesting thing that which struck me time and again while watching the movie Aavasavyuham is that I found there is a deliberate attempt. I don't know, it may not be deliberate, to take the viewers away from the land into water.
Yes, yes, yes.
Quite a bit. I mean, is it deliberately done? Was it a design?
It is. It is. It is. It is.
Yeah, yeah. Could you please comment on that? Yeah.
No, no, no. The idea is that land and water, when you see it through the perspective of human, is land and water, but for a bird, it's just two different spaces. And I think
Correct.
I was looking at it like this creature came from water,
Water. Yeah.
and all of us came from water, and everything is an evolution. So I am trying to insert the images of water every now and then.
Now and then.
So that is there, and also it's a wetland ecosystem. So you have to create this wetland for the audience every other time. So
Now
we
and
might
then. Yeah. Every now and then they should be reminded. Correct.
they
Yeah.
should be reminded. So we might not be shooting in Puduvaipu all the time. The police station is in Kochi. This hospital is not in Puduvaipu. It is again in the suburban part. So we need to keep remind. So directly from the hospital we go to this Mutta, and so it is kind of deliberate. In Purushapratham also we did something very similar. Darshana is represented as water,
Water.
and
Yeah.
Prashant Alexander is represented as fire. So
Elemental. Yeah. They're all
elemental.
yeah.
So fire and water is what keeps on running. So we keep it. This is again design. I think design thoughts.
Another interesting thing that I came across is I don't know. I always am tempted to ask this to any director.
Uh-huh.
Are you happy with the subtitling? And because we while analyzing, we also consider the text. We consider cinema from a literary perspective. We consider cinema as a text. So there is something like we equally keep our eyes open to the subtitling. So how would you rate that? Does it
Aavas-
enhance? Does it really? Did it really enhance the
With
experience?
Aavasvyuham, I'm very happy because I did the subtitling myself, maximum, because I did not want loss in translation. And ChatGPT was not there. It would have made it better because
Better,
I think my
easier. Yeah.
grammar is not great. But still, with Purusha Pradam, I'm still me, and even my writer is not very happy with the subtitle. So we changed the entire subtitle that we got from another friend of us. And with my new film, The Art of War, I'm very happy with the subtitles. So you got the jokes right and everything. So I keep going back to my subtitles and looking at it. The grammar might be wrong, but mostly the context will have some poetry and will have a lot
Yeah,
of things.
that is the point. Is the text lyrical as
Yes,
the
yes,
movie?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes.
that if that is achieved, then I think it's a great
Yeah,
success.
yeah. I think I'm sensitive to that also because of the design learning, 13 words per sentences, and all those things. And look up time, and sometimes with subtitles the dialogues and subtitles should be in par. But in my film, if you notice, the dialogue has ended, but the subtitles is still going for 2 or 3 frames more because of the time
Time.
taken for the people to render. But this has reduced much in my newer contents because of the because it's more commercial. You have to have a deadline with the corporates and stuff. So in my recent one, I'm not sure if I have achieved it. I think whenever I find something wrong, I'll message my subtitle team.
Yes, sir.
Krishan, there is a line that I found very striking that kissing a frog to get a prince is a waste of a perfectly good frog.
Yeah.
Right? Was this an intentional critique of an anthropocentric perspective?
Yeah, it is. It is. I think also I have read this line. This is not my line. I've read this line Sonakshi's or Dr. Biju's manual somewhere. I have read this line.
Okay.
It's not my line. If you let me Google it, and kissing a frog to get a prince is a waste of a perfectly good frog. I have read this somewhere.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. It is
Yes.
by Jim Benton.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
it's by Jim Benton, and this is quoted in Sonakshi's. I hope her name is right. Sonakshi's Sonali Garg.
Okay.
Sonali Garg's
Yeah.
research paper. I think I read it there or Dr. Biju Satyabama. Somewhere I read this, and this struck me. And then I was looking at the whole way the film has turned up, and I thought that so the character says this
Yes.
line at a point where you are looking at everything from a man to man person.
Human centered. Yeah. Human.
My sister is doing a PhD again. She's doing something on cats and its effect on literature.
I too have a student working on the feline subjectivity.
Oh,
One of my students is working on that. Cats
lovely.
in literature. Yeah. Anyway, good. Nice to know that. Yes.
So she keeps on bombarding me with ideas like post-humanism or post-animalia, and so these are things that I don't understand with the small spectrum of understanding that I have. So she gave me the anthropocentric nature of literature, art, and everything, and then she said, "So when you make such a film, you're going to end up there." And Aavasvyuham has ended up there. It is visualizing nature as a man, problematic, big time but since it's cinema and my communication is through language, bhasha and sangeetam and all that, which is again the radar that men can understand, I have to deal with that. So at some point I wanted to make it clear that I am sensitive to this, but at the same time let's not go there, let's not interpret it so much. So that's where this quote came in.
So, talking about this anthropocentric model, Joy also doesn't seem to fit into the societal standards of intelligence and
Ah,
other things, right? He seems to break away from this typical model of anthropocentric view. So, why did you characterize him this way? Was it deliberately done to critique how we prioritize human intellect over other ways of understanding nature?
yes, yes, yes. Also, this is a very it's not a secret trick where you can so it's tougher literature when you are a part of a system and then you're criticizing the system. I would call there's a movie called Devathinte Magan or something, Kalaban Mani and all. So you are criticizing religion while you are in the religion is tougher to write. But this alien perspective is like a stupid, easy perspective where like I want to not want to use the word stupid, but it's an easy perspective So if your protagonist is alien, you can make fun of the religion here. Or if your protagonist is, so that is what we do in PK, and that is what we do in ET, and that is what
Eating.
we do in
Yeah.
all these films where you are outside the system, and then it is very easy for you to look at the system and criticize it. It's tougher, and it's more. It requires more intelligence in screenplay writing when you are inside the system, like Kumbalangi Nights. You
Yes.
are a part of the system, and then you are looking at the system from outside. So to the viewer, communicating that is a little tougher, and it takes more maturity in writing, and I'm not that good with screenplay writing. So I thought this is more easier now, like the PK model, or like those models where you can uh, now look at this strange creature, and through the strange creature's POV we can criticize this
Correct.
process. So that is the whole idea why this was made. And I was so aware of it. And I always used to criticize filmmakers who did it. But then I understood that this is a superpower. And that is why PK is one of the most effective
Cost
films
effective. Yes.
that has worked out, because of the way in which you're using this alien to understand the problems of religion, which is supposed to instill hope, but it has ended up instilling fear and unfair means. So this is my attempt.
Okay. So, Aavasavyuham, I have often read many papers are classifying it as eco cinema, right? So, how do you see this movie fitting into this genre, or did you imagine it to
No,
fit
no,
into this genre?
for me, it's a superhero film. I don't want it to fit into eco cinema at all. But my superhero is the ecosystem itself. So he is a representation, and he comes back. So I'm okay with people classifying it in eco cinema. For me, it's a superhero film, and there's I have written a 4 hour material, but now since a lot of people are liking the film, I really don't want to spoil it for them by bringing in the superhero second part. Yeah.
And I can see that there are many layers, as you have also rightly pointed out. So, how do you see the viewers connecting with these layers, or
I
are you not able to interpret it that way, or the
I
way you
would see
imagined
it
it?
as again based on privilege only. It's completely based
Mm.
on privilege for a person who stumbles upon Aavasavyuham by chance and who likes very popular cinema. They might find it interesting and funny, a little boring because of the documentary and stuff. But a person who is invested in the visual culture and language of cinema might end up understanding this film more. A person who's genuinely sensitive to his spaces, environment, and had the privilege of academia, and had the privilege of music and knowledge, would appreciate the film further. So this film can works for different people based on how they have been exposed to their privileges. Basically, I
Yes.
want to it's true only. I don't want to run away from it. But for a very, very popular cinema viewing audience, they don't find a superstar in it. They find it boring, and it's okay. It's okay. We can't blame them.
So, can you share a bit about your process of writing the dialogues as well?
So what I do is I write a scene, and I also have the intent of the scene, the communication that the scene should be made, and then I perform it myself and record it, and then listen to it and type it down. Then a few days later, when I read it again, if I'm able to get the similar performance, then I work further and add nuances to it. Then I give it to the actor and ask them to interpret it in their way, but you have to highlight this point, or this is my intent of communication. So there is some acting, and then interpretation of the communication that the writer wants. The pauses are basically designed by the actor themselves. I don't design pauses unless the pause is too much. I would say, can you bring the pauses down and stuff. So this is how I write dialogues basically, and thankfully I am able to strike gold every time. So
That's great. Keep doing that.
yes,
Come out with the more similar films. That is also striking gold is a guarantee for another venture anyway.
yeah. I think I'm lucky that way, because I am also sensitive to bad dialogues at this point in time. Okay,
Correct.
I mean, when I was younger, I would be very happy with the long format dialogues that Malayalam cinema offers.
Yeah.
But now I keep thinking, and I look at works of Sham Pushkar, or Pushkaran, or I look at works of new filmmakers, and I find that even Avesham, I find that
Yeah.
sweet small dialogues at the right time is far better than this long format.
Long melodramatic ones.
Yes,
Yeah. Now, one more feature, one very significant feature again, which I couldn't keep my senses out, was the soundscape in your Aavasavyuham. Because what I found in the soundscape is it is rich with the biophony. The
huh.
sounds of life.
Yes, 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 yes.
Even when it is talking about the problems of Puduvaipa, but the film is rich. I mean, it was it done intentionally to give an immersive experience for the.
Totally, totally. I think that is where this film on OTT. It's so a few people have seen this film on theater in theater at IFFK. There were three shows. Then there was the show, four or five, maximum 10 shows of theater it had. People who have seen it in theater will understand that in the 5.1 speakers, the frog sounds, the nature sounds.
Yes.
Prashant Menon, my sound designer, had done a wonderful job. And my whole direction towards my music director and sound designer, there is something called rhythm of life. So you should, that is what you embrace. So there are areas where frog sounds are used as music, and there are areas where bird sounds are used as rhythms.
Correct.
And so that is what we embrace, and everything has a talam. So it's
Yes.
like
Rhythm.
rhythm is what, and rhythm is on an animal skin. Basically, it's a djembe
Yeah.
or a dakya or something. And then finally, when I wanted to show how museums or my problems with academia and museum and so there you change it into European cello, but again it's rhythm.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we done that.
Yes, Anima. Yeah.
Yes, so I think we can wind up in a few minutes because it's already 8:52.
Yep, yep.
So thank you so much for sharing your insights. I'm very sure that it is incredibly valuable for my research, and I'm sure sir will agree.
We will share our research also with you because we have done
Yeah,
a couple of papers on Aavasavyuham.
Oh,
I
We are
shared
really?
one
doing a full-fledged
abstract with you.
research on eco
Sir, I've
cinema,
already
Malayalam
shared
eco
the
cinema.
abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So we will definitely share our perspectives with you, and
Ha.
then we'll keep connected as and when you are anywhere near Mumbai. Please let us know. We will definitely catch up. We will be more than happy to meet you, and maybe a couple
Well,
of other.
let's stop the recording and then we'll talk.
Yep, 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 yep. Please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.